What if I told you that ordinary-looking quarter in your pocket could be worth thousands? Some Washington quarters are so rare, packed with mint errors, that collectors pay a fortune for them. Today, we reveal the top 5 most valuable ones. By the end, you'll be racing to check every quarter you own. The Washington quarter, first minted in 1932, was designed by John Flanagan to honor George Washington. Over the years, its design has stayed mostly the same, featuring Washington's profile and an eagle on the reverse. Some years, however, produced quarters with minting errors, making them incredibly valuable to collectors. Today, we'll explore 5 rare Washington quarters from the 1960s and 1970s. Let's kick things off with the 1969 Washington quarter. This one is super interesting because it was minted without a mint mark. Now, you might be wondering, what's a mint mark? Mint marks are small letters on coins that tell us where they were produced. Normally, you'd see a D for the Denver Mint, an S for San Francisco, or sometimes, you won't see any mint mark at all, which means it was minted in Philadelphia. So, here's the twist, the 1969 quarter was actually supposed to be struck at the San Francisco Mint, but during the minting process, a mistake happened. As a result, these coins were produced without the expected mint mark. This error is what makes them so valuable. You see, mint marks are part of the unique characteristics that make each coin identifiable, and missing one makes this quarter extremely rare. Collectors know just how rare these are, and that's why if you find one of these in excellent condition, it could be worth as much as $50,000 at auction. Yes, you read that right, a single quarter, worth 50 grand. What makes the 1969 no-mint mark Washington quarter so valuable isn't just the error itself but how rare it is. Imagine a coin that was intended to be minted in a specific place, yet it ended up being a mistake, creating a coin that wasn't supposed to exist in that form. This rarity is the holy grail for coin collectors. The fact that it's so hard to find in good condition makes it even more sought after. Now, imagine flipping through your coin jar or going through an old collection of change and coming across one of these. If you're lucky enough to spot a 1969 Washington quarter without a mint mark, that could be your ticket to a pretty sizable payout. Of course, the value is going to depend a lot on the coin's condition. The better the condition, the higher the price it can fetch. But even if it's a little worn, it's still likely to be worth a significant amount. This coin's value has been steadily rising over the years, with more and more collectors getting interested in finding it. It's a great reminder that some of the most valuable coins aren't always the ones that are the oldest or the rarest by general standards. Sometimes, it's those hidden gems that were created by mistake, like the 1969 Washington quarter with no mint mark, that truly shine in the world of coin collecting. So, if you ever come across one of these, don't just toss it aside or spend it like any other quarter. Take a closer look, and who knows? You might have a small fortune in your hands. Next up, we have the 1979 Washington quarter. Now, at first glance, you might think, okay, it's just another quarter from the 70s. The 1970s were decades ago, and most coins from this era don't usually carry a big price tag. But trust me, this one is different, and it's going to surprise you. You see, just like the 1969 Washington quarter, some of the 1979 quarters were struck without a mint mark. But here's the twist that will really grab your attention, these rare 1979 quarters were supposed to be minted at the San Francisco Mint. However, due to a minting error, they were actually produced at the Philadelphia Mint instead, without the expected mint mark. Now, this error may seem like a small detail, but to collectors, it's a huge deal. Mint marks are those tiny letters on coins that tell us where they were made. Normally, D stands for Denver, and S is for San Francisco, and if there's no mint mark, it typically means the coin came from Philadelphia. But these 1979 quarters without a mint mark? They're incredibly rare. These coins were not meant to be like this, and that mistake makes them highly valuable. Imagine, a coin that was supposed to be a standard part of your change, and now, because of a small minting error, it could be worth thousands. If you happen to find a 1979 Washington quarter without a mint mark, depending on its condition, it could fetch anywhere from $10,000 to $29,000 at auction. That's right, up to $29,000 for a single quarter. It's hard to believe, but the market for rare coins is booming, and mistakes like this turn what you thought was just a regular coin into a treasure. But here's the kicker: condition is everything. If the coin is in mint condition, it could be worth significantly more. A well-preserved 1979 quarter could land you in the higher end of that price range, while a coin that's been circulating for decades with a little more wear might be on the lower end. The point is, if you find one of these, you'll definitely want to take it to a professional to get it appraised. Who knows? You could be holding on to a small fortune that's been sitting in your pocket, unnoticed, for years. So, how do you spot one of these? It's pretty simple. Just look closely for the absence of the mint mark. If there's no D or S and you're holding a 1979 Washington quarter, you might have one of these rare, error coins. The lack of the mint mark is your first clue that you could be looking at a collector's dream. In a world where most coins from the 1970s are nothing more than pocket change, the 1979 Washington quarter stands out as one that's genuinely rare, and potentially worth a lot of money. So next time you're sifting through your change or digging through an old coin jar, remember that seemingly ordinary quarter could actually be the key to unlocking some serious cash. Now let's talk about the 1974 Washington quarter, another rare gem in this collection of coins that can really pack a punch in terms of value. If you've been following along, you'll notice the story here is similar to the 1969 and 1979 quarters. The 1974 Washington quarter was struck without a mint mark. But here's the real kicker: this particular error is extremely rare, and not just because it's missing a mint mark. The 1974 quarter is one of the few years where so many of these coins were struck without a mint mark, making them stand out even more to collectors. What happened? Well, just like the other years we've discussed, the error occurred during the minting process. For whatever reason, these 1974 quarters were produced at the Philadelphia Mint without the expected mint mark that would normally indicate the coin came from there. And while you might think a missing mint mark is a small detail in the world of coin collecting, it's a big deal. That's because a coin struck without a mint mark is rare, especially when it's from a year where so many were affected by the mistake. So why does this matter? The 1974 Washington quarter is one of those coins that can make a serious splash in the coin collecting world. These mintless quarters have caught the attention of many collectors, and the value has shot up over the years. If you happen to find one of these rare coins in your collection, depending on its condition, you could be looking at anywhere from $67,000 to $72,000. That's a huge range, but it reflects just how valuable this coin can be in excellent condition. Let's break it down a little further. The value really depends on how well preserved the coin is. If the quarter has been kept in top-tier condition, meaning it shows minimal wear, no scratches, and has a sharp, clear design, you could be looking at the higher end of that price range. But even a coin that's a little worn with a bit of circulation can still be worth a significant amount. That's the power of rarity and the error behind this coin. It turns an otherwise standard quarter into something truly special. If you're lucky enough to find a 1974 Washington quarter without a mint mark, it's definitely worth having it professionally graded. Grading is important because it determines the coin's condition and ultimately its value. Coins in pristine uncirculated condition will be worth far more than those that have seen a lot of time in circulation. Now you might be wondering, how do I spot one of these? Well, the key here is again the absence of the mint mark. Unlike most quarters from the 1970s, this one doesn't have the usual D or S stamped on it, signaling where it was made. If you find a 1974 quarter with no mint mark at all, then congratulations, you might have just uncovered a rare piece of coin history. The 1974 Washington quarter without a mint mark is a perfect example of how an error during the minting process can create a coin that's far more valuable than it was ever meant to be. Now, let's dive into the 1965 Washington quarter, and trust me, this one's got a story that's sure to grab your attention. At first glance, the 1965 quarter might seem like just another coin from the mid-60s. However, there's a rare version of this coin that's caught the eyes of collectors, and it's worth way more than you'd think. These are the 1965 Washington quarters that were struck without a mint mark, and here's where things get really interesting. You see, during the mid-1960s, the U.S. Mint was under immense pressure. The country was in the middle of a coin shortage, people were hoarding coins, and the mint was scrambling to produce enough to keep up with demand. They were working around the clock, minting coins as fast as they could, and that's when this minting error happened. These 1965 quarters were supposed to have a mint mark, but somehow, a batch was released without any mint mark at all. This isn't just a simple mistake, it's an accidental rarity that makes these coins incredibly valuable. Typically, if a coin was minted in Philadelphia, you wouldn't see any mint mark. However, most coins from that era struck in places like Denver or San Francisco would have a D or S mint mark, respectively. But, in this case, the 1965 Washington quarter was meant to be minted in Philadelphia, and due to the frantic pace at the mint, a whole bunch of these quarters ended up being released without a mint mark at all. And that, my friends, is exactly what makes them so special. Now, let's talk about why these 1965, no mint mark, quarters are such a big deal. While the 1965 quarters from Philadelphia might seem like a regular coin on the surface, the fact that they were produced without a mint mark turns them into a rare collector's item. There's something fascinating about how an error like this, caused by a hectic time in U.S. history, has turned these quarters into pieces of numismatic gold. So, how much is a 1965 Washington quarter worth? Well, if you happen to find one of these rare, no mint mark, versions in solid condition, you could be looking at a value between $20,000 and $22,000. That's right, $20,000 for a quarter. This simple minting oversight has skyrocketed the value of these coins, making them highly sought after in the world of coin collecting. It's a classic case of how a small mistake can transform an ordinary coin into something extraordinary. But of course, the value depends heavily on the condition of the coin. Coins that have been well taken care of, with minimal wear, clear designs, and sharp details, can fetch the highest prices. If you find one of these quarters in excellent condition, it might even exceed the expected price range. So, if you think you've got a 1965 Washington quarter with no mint mark, definitely get it appraised by a professional. You could be holding on to a piece of history worth far more than you ever imagined. It's crazy to think that a simple minting mistake, a tiny detail, like the absence of a mint mark, could transform a coin from the 1960s into something worth thousands of dollars. This is a perfect example of how the world of coin collecting isn't just about age or rarity, it's about those unexpected, fascinating little errors that make some coins truly priceless. So, keep your eyes peeled for that 1965 Washington quarter without a mint mark. Who knows? You might just have a $20,000 treasure hiding in your pocket change. Lastly, let's take a look at the 1967 Washington quarter, another truly rare find that's worth far more than you might think. While most of the 1967 quarters were minted as usual with their standard mint marks, there's a specific group of quarters from this year that were produced without any mint mark at all. Sound familiar? This is similar to the 1965 quarter we talked about earlier, where quarters struck at the Philadelphia Mint were missing their mint marks due to an error. And just like that 1965 error, these 1967 no mint mark quarters are highly valuable because of that very mistake. Why is this a big deal? Mint marks are important because they tell collectors exactly where a coin was made. Normally, coins minted at the Philadelphia Mint don't carry any mint mark, while coins struck in other mints, like Denver or San Francisco, would feature a D or S. But in 1967, just like in 1965, the minting process was in high gear, and in the hustle to produce enough coins, some of the 1967 quarters from Philadelphia were struck without a mint mark, a small mistake with big consequences. This error makes the 1967 Washington quarter incredibly rare and highly desirable to coin collectors. There weren't a huge number of these error coins produced, which means that finding one today can feel like stumbling across a hidden treasure. And when you do find one of these rare 1967 quarters, you might be in for a huge surprise. Depending on its condition, a 1967 Washington quarter without a mint mark could be worth anywhere from $55,000 to $60,000. That's right, just a simple oversight in the minting process can send a quarter from being a common coin to a rare collectible worth tens of thousands of dollars. The reason for such high value is tied to how rare these coins are. Collectors are always looking for coins with interesting stories behind them, whether it's a historical context, a special design, or, in this case, a minting error. The fact that these 1967 quarters were supposed to have a mint mark but didn't is exactly what makes them so valuable. Of course, as with any coin, condition is key. The better the coin's condition, the more it's worth. A coin that's been kept in mint condition with little wear and clear, sharp details can fetch a much higher price than one that's seen heavy circulation and has visible damage. So, if you happen to come across a 1967 Washington quarter without a mint mark, take a good look at it. If it's in great shape, it could be worth a fortune. This is just another example of how a small error, like the omission of a mint mark, can make a coin soar in value. The 1967 Washington quarter without a mint mark is definitely a coin worth keeping your eye out for. Who knows, it could be sitting in your change jar right now. So, what do you think? Have you ever found one of these million-dollar quarters? Let me know in the comments, and if you haven't checked your spare change yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that like button, subscribe for more crazy coin secrets, and turn on notifications so you never miss a treasure hunt. Until next time, keep digging, and maybe, just maybe you'll strike it rich.